Those who have a maverick mother-in-law know that life can always be thrown into chaos. Not only do we need to be extremely cautious in daily interactions, but we also have to constantly deal with her various strange ideas, and even be prepared for her astonishing actions at any time. I have a 65-year-old mother-in-law who has fallen in love with a black man from an African primitive tribe, and wants to elope with him. I kindly reminded her, and she seemed to believe me at first. However, her sworn enemy then ran away with that black man. Later my mother-in-law actually blamed me and in collusion with my husband sold me. If I were to be reborn, I definitely won't tolerate such things. Oh goo, you look, this handsome black guy left me a message on Douyin praising me for being so beautiful. Oh my, this young black fellow even has abs. TSK tisk, he really has good taste. He actually fancies me. The familiar laughter of my mother-in-law rang in my ears. I was instantly stunned. Didn't I already die? The fear of being beaten by that old bachelor before my death still lingers in my heart at this moment. Looking around at this familiar environment, I suddenly realized that I had been reborn. In my previous life at the same time, a black man praised my mother-in-law, saying that she resembled the older version of Bridget Lin, and insisted on meeting her. My husband and I tried our best to dissuade them, but ultimately failed to stop it. After they met, my mother-in-law said ecstatically that the black man had fallen in love with her at first sight, and planned to take her to the primitive tribe to be the chief's wife. My mother-in-law looked so proud, as if she truly had boundless charm, and could fascinate even foreigners. To be honest, it's not that I'm prejudiced against the elderly, but looking at my mother-in-law's triple-layer belly fat wrinkled face, and the old person smell on her body, I really can't associate her with Bridget Lin. I kindly reminded my mother-in-law to be more careful. After all, there are an endless stream of scams targeting the elderly these days. She mustn't be deceived. To convince her, I gave her examples. Aunt Wang in the community was swindled out of 120,000 yuan by a young gigolo, and was so desperate that she wanted to jump off a building. Uncle Lee downstairs was cheated out of tens of thousands of yuan by a tea-selling girl. Now he's making a fuss at home about getting a divorce, saying he wants to pursue his second spring. With my unremitting efforts, my mother-in-law finally gave up the idea of eloping with the black man. But who could have imagined that she actually started causing trouble at home, every day glaring at me with hostility, and finding fault with everything about me. I thought, after all, she's an old person. I should be more tolerant. Sooner or later, she will understand our good intentions. But the world is full of uncertainties. One day after my mother-in-law saw something on Moments, she suddenly flew into a rage through her phone and flung all the carefully prepared meals I made onto the floor. Then she pointed at me and started cursing. It's all your fault that I can't live a good life. If it weren't for you stopping me, I would be enjoying a happy life now. Amid her furious scolding, I learned that after being rejected by my mother-in-law, that black young man actually got together with Aunt Wang in the square dancing team, who was my mother-in-law's sworn enemy. Seeing the African natural scenery, and the scene of dozens of people waiting on Aunt Wang that she posted on Moments, my mother-in-law's jealousy completely erupted. She firmly believed that I had ruined her dream of becoming a chief's wife. So she actually conspired with my mama's boy husband. They drugged me, knocked me unconscious, and sold me to an old bachelor in the mountains for 50,000 yuan. From then on, I was beaten every day and died miserably within a few months. After my death, my soul drifted to Aunt Wang's place. Only then did I discover that what my mother-in-law said were all just surface appearances. Aunt Wang did have a few good days at first with someone specially waiting on her. But a week later, the true nature of that black man was revealed. He forced Aunt Wang's children to send money. If the money was not enough, he would beat and kick her. Aunt Wang, being so old, was constantly abused every day, and had to cooperate with the black man in live streaming. Before long, her body couldn't take it anymore, and she died. And her son and daughter-in-law spent all their money because of her affairs and finally ended up with their family broken up. Now, having been reborn, when I hear my mother-in-law's words again, I no longer try to dissuade her. Instead, I wholeheartedly support her. I really want to see if her dream of becoming a chief's wife can actually come true. Are you deaf? I've been calling you for a long time and you didn't respond. Just as I was in a daze, my mother-in-law's slap came down mercilessly. I didn't react in time, and took this slap directly. Mom, you're absolutely right. That black young man really has good taste. When are you two going to meet? I pretended to be submissive and meek in my response, which successfully pleased my mother-in-law. She looked at me triumphantly, her eyes full of arrogance. That's more like it. We're going to meet this Sunday. He said he'll take me to the African tribe to be the chief's wife then. I'm not like you, a lowly commoner. Listening to my mother-in-law's words, I sneered inwardly. I'm afraid she's going to have a one-way trip, and is still indulging in her dream of being a chief's wife. However, I didn't show these thoughts. Then, Mom, take our card and buy some nice clothes. Dress yourself up well to make a good impression when you meet him. As I spoke, I took out the credit card and handed it to my mother-in-law. Looking at her satisfied expression, I didn't feel a bit sorry. After all, it was her son's money being spent. Sure enough, the next second my phone was bombarded with calls from my mama's boy husband. Hello Guyu, what are you doing with my credit card? One expense after another. Do you think my money grows on trees? You're such a wasteful woman. Don't you know how hard it is to earn money? Listening to the man's angry roar on the phone, I couldn't help but be a little dazed. Thinking back, I was also a management in a big company. But when Wu Lu was dating me, he promised to support me and let me return to family life. I was bewitched and became a virtuous wife and good mother. But within half a year, he started to dislike me for not making money and spending his money every day. He forgot that his monthly salary of 3,500 yuan was not even a fraction of my previous salary. Honey, this money is for mom to spend. Old people like to dress up nicely. It's very normal. As soon as Wu Lu heard that it was his mother spending the money, his tone immediately changed. Then why didn't you say so earlier? Let mom buy whatever she wants. Just help her carry things. You're so thoughtless every day. Amid Wu Li's grumbling, I hung up the phone. Before long, the sound of the door opening came from the entrance. It was my mother-in-law Lu Xiu coming back. Beside her was a dark figure. Looking closely, it was that black man. Jack, just consider this as your own home. If you need anything, just tell my daughter-in-law. Lu Xiu said as she affectionately took the black man's arm and walked in. As soon as Jack entered the door, he started looking around, his eyes revealing an assessment of the valuable things in my house. He chatted with my mother-in-law from time to time. His Chinese was quite fluent, but his eyes were full of impropriety. Lu Xiu didn't care about this. She looked at Jack lovingly and listened to him talk about life in the primitive tribe with an adoring look on her face. Wow, Jack, you're so amazing and you have such a great figure. Surely there must be many people who like you in your place, right? Come on, eat this meat, have more. Lu Xiu's originally rough voice suddenly turned tender and sweet, which made my skin crawl. Jack seemingly noticed these. A flash of disgust appeared in his eyes, but he quickly concealed it instead. He showed great concern for Lu Xiu, and even took the initiative to pick food for her. Xiu. Eat more, if you get too thin from hunger, I'll be heartbroken. Immediately the mother-in-law giggled at the meat in the bowl, and from time to time stole coy glances at Jack. I watched this scene curiously, truly puzzled. Were they really that hungry? How could they eat like this? Jack noticed my gaze, and actually put a piece of meat in my bowl. At that moment, a wave of nausea hit me, and I immediately put down the bowl. When the mother-in-law saw this, her face immediately changed. She quickly picked up that piece of meat and put it in her own mouth. Eat, that's all you know, so thick-skinned? Don't you have hands? Don't you even consider if you're worthy of eating this? Her tone was sharp and mean, and the sudden change in her attitude left me stunned. That was not all. She took out her phone and took a 9-square grid photo of the meat in the bowl. Soon I saw the photo she posted on Moments with the caption, "My dearest Jack gave me my favorite meat," along with a cute wink emoji. I really couldn't stand the nauseating sweetness between the two of them. Using the excuse of being full, I quickly fled to the room. Actually, I wanted to check the situation in the living room through the surveillance in the room. Jack, you're the one who treats me the best. Look at my daughter-in-law. She's not filial to me at all, and doesn't care about Mila's. An old woman like me is so pitiful. The mother-in-law said, feigning a look of being on the verge of tears. However, due to her advanced age, that appearance looked rather comical. Jack immediately hugged the mother-in-law and comforted her, saying, "It's okay, Xiu, I just like you the way you are. You don't need to be strong anymore because your support has arrived. They don't understand your vulnerability, but I do, Xiu." In the evening, Wu Lu, the mama's boy, came back seeing the black man who suddenly appeared at home. He thought it was my lover I had brought back. He immediately flew into a rage and started cursing. "Guyu, you little slut, get out here. You actually brought a lover home, how dare you? Do you want to die?" With a slap. A clear sound of a slap resounded in the living room. Wu Lu covered his slapped face and looked at his mother, who usually doted on him, in disbelief. "Mom, why did you hit me?" "Lele, don't talk nonsense. This is Jack, who likes mom. What does he have to do with that infertile hen in your family?" Wu Lu rolled his eyes and said, "Mom, I know Dad passed away early, and you're feeling sad, but what's going on with you bringing a black man back? People will gossip about us behind our backs." The mother-in-law simply ignored him and dragged the black man out, claiming that she wanted to cultivate her relationship with Jack. "Wife, are you just going to watch mom be with this black man?" Wu Lu grabbed me, who was watching the scene, and wouldn't let me go. It was always like this. Whenever there was something he didn't want to deal with himself, he would order me to do it. What can I do? Mom likes him, so let her be. After saying that, I turned around and left without giving him a chance to respond, leaving Wu Lu alone, fuming with anger. Look, actually Wu Lu also knows in his heart that it's not very safe to let a black man be with mom casually, but in my previous life, when I tried to dissuade them, he remained silent, just waiting for me to be the one to take the lead, and then let mom hold a grudge against me this life. I won't be that stupid to be used as a pawn by them. I remember at this time in my previous life, apart from the matter of my mother-in-law, Wu wasn't idle either. He got together with the new secretary in the company. While he was taking a shower, I took out his phone strangely. The phone was unusually clean, and even those slightly risque apps were gone. I suddenly remembered something I had accidentally seen before about a man's phone possibly having a dual system, so, with a try it and see attitude, I started operating unexpectedly. I really opened another system. The WeChat seemed clean too, but I found in Alipay that he was chatting with someone whose profile picture was a sexy maid outfit. The chat records were so explicit that they were almost like a pornographic movie. Moreover, Wu had transferred many ambiguous amount of money to this girl and Bejo edit as a voluntary gift. Oh, thinking that I usually have to account for every penny when asking him for grocery money, report the use of each expense, and even need to provide invoices. This difference really makes my heart feel cold. I quietly took pictures of these evidences, waiting for the right time to sue him for extramarital affairs, and make him leave the marriage with nothing. The weekend arrived. The mother-in-law asked me coyly which places were suitable for couples to go and insisted that I accompany her to go on a date with Jack. I instinctively refused, but I knew this mother-in-law of mine, she won't stop until she achieves her goal. In my previous life, she once claimed to be a person with high emotional needs, and said she needed a lot of love. She even wanted to sleep with Wu at night. At that time, Wu and I had just gotten married, and I disagreed. As a result, she immediately started spreading rumors. She slandered me in front of Wu, saying that I made her fall, and that I disliked the old person smell on her. She even spread rumors in the community that I was abusing her, which made the people in the community look at me differently. There was no other way. I had to compromise and agree to let them sleep together while I slept alone. Now, to prevent her from using other tricks, I still agreed to her request. It just so happened that I could also see what other strange things these two could do. They chose an afternoon at the mall as the date location. The weather was extremely hot. I advised the mother-in-law to go and sit in a place with air conditioning, but she refused, saying that walking more could enhance their relationship. Just when I was getting impatient from the heat, Jack finally arrived. He still carried a cheap woman's perfume smell on him. The moment the mother-in-law saw Jack, her eyes instantly lit up like bright stars. Her steps unconsciously quickened, and she rushed towards him with a coquettish look on her face, saying, "Darling, why did you take so long? I've been waiting for you for ages." As a black person, Jack had particularly developed sweat glands in no time. His clothes were soaked with sweat, emitting a strong body odor that was really unbearable. He didn't respond to the mother-in-law's words. Instead, he looked me up and down. When the mother-in-law saw that he ignored her, she immediately looked very unhappy. She gave me a fierce glare and gently rubbed her chest against Jack's arm, coquettishly saying, "Darling, why did you only come now? I've been missing you so much that I couldn't sleep. Why don't you answer me? Is this your daughter-in-law? She looks really beautiful." Jack opened his mouth, revealing a mouthful of white teeth, and licking his lips from time to time. He extended his hand, indicating that he wanted to shake hands with me. Suppressed the nausea in my heart, and politely touched his hand gently, then quickly tried to withdraw it. Unexpectedly, he took the opportunity to scratch my palm, and winked at me playfully. I was so scared that I hurriedly took several steps back. When the mother-in-law saw this, she immediately stood between us, as if she was afraid that I would seduce Jack. Just like this, in the sweltering heat with the temperature approaching over 40 degrees Celsius, I accompanied them to wander around the mall for a whole day. In the end, I even had to pay for a bottle of water myself, while the mother-in-law bought a cup of milk tea for both herself and Jack, completely ignoring my existence. "Oh, my baby is so sweet," Jack said, and suddenly kissed the mother-in-law on the face. The loud sound attracted the attention of people around. The mother-in-law looked shy, and her appearance was rather comical. "Ah, exactly, you two are a match made in heaven. You have a couple look. You must never be separated. Even the steel wire of the yearlock matchmaker has to tie you two tightly together." I pretended to echo beside them. Passers-by cast surprised glances at this strange combination of a black man and an old woman. Is this really the way things are nowadays? It's one thing if a young man falls for an older woman, but how on earth can this black man be interested in an old lady? I simply can't understand it. It's truly astonishing. This is really an extreme taste. They must be incredibly desperate, I suppose. I couldn't hold back, and let out a snort of laughter. The mother-in-law instantly flew into a rage, pointing at the passers-by and shouting angrily, "Are you blind? This is my boyfriend. If you're just jealous, that's one thing. But if your eyes don't work properly, you'd better go to the hospital and get them treated." The passers-by wore an expression that was hard to describe. Seeing this, I couldn't help but laugh again. When the mother-in-law heard my laughter, she stopped scolding the passers-by and turned to me in a fit of anger, saying, "Goo, you'd better put away those improper thoughts. Jack is mine. You stay away from him, or I'll tell my son to beat you to death." Hearing these words, I was filled with speechless indignation inside. What on earth could I possibly see in him? His lack of hygiene, and the foul smell all over his body? Or the fact that he's as black as coal, and you don't even need to turn on the light when he grins at night. Ever since she got together with Jack, the mother-in-law has even given up her favorite square dancing. She spends all day being lovey-dovey with Jack. However, some strange things have been happening one after another in our community. Recently, there have always been people in the community's homeowners group complaining that their Wang Sai de Nei have gone missing without a trace, even though they were properly hung out to dry. What on earth is going on here? Every day when I hang out the clothes, it's only the underwear that disappears. Has anyone seen anything? I haven't seen anything. I thought they might have been blown away by the wind. If they were blown away by the wind, I didn't see them fall downstairs either. Could it be that someone stole them? As soon as I sent my message, the homeowners group fell silent for an instant, and then a heated discussion ensued. At this moment, I noticed that the mother-in-law's expression was somewhat strange. Usually, when faced with such things, she would always put on an attitude of being indifferent and aloof, and might even sarcastically mock others for not hanging their clothes properly. But at this moment, her face was written all over with a look of guilt. Something similar seemed to have happened in my previous life, but at that time, I was so tortured by them that I was in a terrible state, and I didn't even connect this matter with the mother-in-law. At Ali just thought the clothes were blown away by the wind. Now it seems that she is probably involved in this matter. That night, the mother-in-law looked around furtively, and after making sure that there was no one around, she sneaked to the pavilion in the community. She was still carrying a black bag in her hand. As soon as the two figures met, they couldn't wait to hug each other tightly. Jack said eagerly, "Hurry up and give me the things. I can hardly stand it anymore." "Oh, darling, this is so exciting. I am so afraid of being discovered," the mother-in-law coquettishly said while wriggling her huge body that weighed over 180 pounds. Jack rummaged through the bag that the mother-in-law brought with a look of anxiety, and it turned out that it was full of the underwear and pants that the homeowners had lost. In an instant, all the lights around the two of them turned on, and they were so scared that the things in their hands fell to the ground. The crowd around quickly surrounded them. "You're really shameless and immoral. At such an old age, you're still doing such despicable things. You should be locked up. It's so disgusting. You're even getting involved with the black men. Aren't you ashamed?" The homeowners all shouted abuse at the two of them. The mother-in-law's face turned extremely ugly, alternating between blue and white. She gritted her teeth, but couldn't say a word. Standing outside the crowd, I watched the mother-in-law being criticized by everyone and laughed with great satisfaction. After all, I just anonymously provided some clues in the homeowners group, and I didn't expect everyone to act so quickly. The mother-in-law is someone who values face the most in this life. I'm going to completely trample on her pride. In my previous life, just because I discussed work with my colleague a bit longer in the company, the mother-in-law who happened to come by at that moment spread rumors that I was having an affair without hesitation, which caused me to lose job after job. I was afraid to go out because every time I did, I would be subjected to the criticism of others, but the mother-in-law just insisted on dragging me out, making me bear the accusations of everyone if I didn't go out. She would ask Wu Lu to beat me. I'm an orphan, and there's no one to stand up for me. Those days were simply like living in a state of extreme distress. Now, it's all good. The retribution for all the evil deeds she did to me in the previous life has finally fallen on her through the word of mouth among the homeowners. The mother-in-law's stealing of underwear and pants soon became known to everyone. For a while, wherever the mother-in-law went, there were people pointing at her and scolding her. Even Wu Li's work was affected. He was demoted and was ordered not to go to the company for a week. On this day, Wu Lu returned home in a fit of anger and scolded the mother-in-law. "Mom, how long are you going to hang out with this black guy? Do you know how people in the company look at me? My mom is having a relationship with a black mando. I still have any face left?" The mother-in-law put her hands on her hips and retorted, "I love him, and I want to be with him. It's just a few pieces of underwear and pants." Jack was just curious to take a look. What's the big deal? I think those female homeowners are really being unreasonable. It's just such a trivial matter. Yet they've made such a big fuss about it. They think their underwear and pants are some kind of precious treasures. Who cares about them? We were just looking at them. Son, you're also an educated person. You should be able to distinguish between truth and falsehood. Especially those things on the internet, they re all false. Do you know how outstanding Jack is? He's the chief of a tribe in Africa. He said he's going to take me to be the chief's wife. Those people are just jealous of me. In a few days, I'm going to go to Africa with him to be the chief's wife. By then, even if they kneel down and beg me, I won't even give them a second glance. When Wu Lu saw that he couldn't persuade his mother, he immediately took out his anger on me. "Guyu, what's wrong with you? Mom is being scolded, and you don't even know how to clarify things? You just know how to be a good-for-nothing in our family, like a dead person." I couldn't bear it any longer, and slapped Wu Lu across the face. Wu Lu seemed to be still in a daze, and stared at me stupidly. "Husband, how can you say that about Mom? She likes Jack, And that's her freedom. Why are you interfering? As children, shouldn't we support the old people's dreams? Mom, you tell me when you're going to Africa. We'll pay for the air tickets. Don't worry about anything. We'll cover all the expenses. You just have a great time with Jack. As I spoke, I took out the private money that Wu Lu had hidden in the bedroom. Mom, this is a little money I've saved, although it's not much, as long as you're happy. The mother-in-law accepted the money and immediately beamed with joy. She praised me repeatedly. This is my good daughter-in-law, unlike my son, who doesn't know how to think at all. Wu Lu was stunned by my slap. When he came to his senses, he wanted to hit me, but the mother-in-law stopped him. The mother-in-law looked at him with a displeased expression. Son, you're in the wrong this time. Gu Yu is so good. Why are you hitting her? Wu Lu put down his raised hand and gave me a fierce glare. After the mother-in-law left, Wu Lu immediately dragged me into the room. Gu Yu, what on earth are you up to? Why didn't you try to persuade Mom? Now she's going to go to Africa with that black guy. Husband, think about it. What would happen if we went against Mom's wishes? Mom will definitely be stubborn and do as she pleases, right? Wu Lu nodded. Then we might as well go along with Mom's idea first, and then take all of Mom's money after Mom has a few days of hard life with Jack. She will naturally change her mind and think that it's better here in China by then. We don't need to persuade her, and she'll come back on her own. The frown on Wu Li's face finally relaxed. But what if Mom can't come back easily over there? You're so silly. Husband, we can just go and pick her up, can't we? But you have to cooperate with me and act out a play then. After hearing my idea, Wu Lu praised me highly. You're truly my good wife. Looking at the man's beaming face, I smiled from the bottom of my heart. They have no idea that all of this is part of my plan. The next day, my husband ran to the mother-in-law with the forged information and said, Mom, look, these black people nowadays are all operating in teams. They chat and meet with clear division of labor. Their ultimate goal is to cheat the money of those lonely old women who lack love. In Africa, black people practice polygamy. When you go to Africa, you'll find that those black men have more than one wife. By then, the black men will rely on their wives to earn money to support themselves, and then they'll come back here to cheat other women. The most terrifying thing is that there's also a disgusting wife-sharing culture among black people over there. When their relatives and friends come to visit, they will give their wives as gifts to the guests to play with. Mom, take a look. After reading all this, do you still want to be with that Jack? Listening to Wu Li's words, a look of struggle flashed across the mother-in-law's face. In the face of love and her own life, she ultimately cherished her life more. Just like this, the mother-in-law was quiet for a few days, and then resumed her habit of square dancing. On this day, Jack came to the dance team holding a bouquet of roses. The mother-in-law, with sharp eyes, saw him at once, thinking that he was coming for her. She immediately pretended to be absent-minded while secretly observing Jack. Unexpectedly, Jack walked straight past her and went up to Aunt Wang, her sworn enemy. He said, Darling, you're so beautiful. Flowers match a beautiful woman. You re the most special Asian girl I've ever met. Sweet words poured out of Jack's mouth like a rapid stream. The mother-in-law was so angry that her teeth were chattering. When she got home, she saw the photo that Jack posted with Aunt Wang, with the caption, The person in front of me is the one in my heart, the most special Asian girl I've ever met. And Aunt Wang posted photos of the two of them taking a walk and buying luxury goods with the caption, Thank you, time, for letting me meet a man who is willing to buy luxury goods for me. The mother-in-law couldn't sit still any longer. She started throwing things at home and vented her anger to her heart's content. As I opened the door, I happened to see this scene. I secretly chuckled in my heart, but put on a concerned look on my face and said, Mom, what's wrong? Who has made you angry again? It's that little slut surnamed Wang. Jack actually got together with her. I'm so angry he even bought her luxury goods. Like Balenciaga. Jack has never bought me anything like that. The mother-in-law's tone was filled with envy and jealousy. Well, this is easy to solve. You send Jack a message saying that you've changed your mind and are willing to go to Africa with him to be the chief's wife. But he's already with that woman surnamed Wang. Will he still agree to my request? The mother-in-law asked with a look of self-doubt and anxiety on her face. Sure he will. Maybe Jack got together with Aunt Wang just to make you jealous. As soon as I said this, the mother-in-law's eyes lit up instantly. You're right, he must be angry that I haven't talked to him these days. I'll send him a message right away. With that, the mother-in-law sent Jack a message as I had taught her. Jack quickly agreed to the mother-in-law's request. However, he proposed that the mother-in-law had to go to Africa with him in 2 days, because he was going back to inherit the chief's position. Without a second thought, the mother-in-law decisively agreed. Hiding in the dark, I also sent a message. Aunt Wang, thank you for your cooperation. In accordance with the agreement with Jack, the mother-in-law boarded the plane with her passport, full of joy, ready to fly to the Africa she had long yearned for to be the chief's wife. At this time, Wu Lu, upon learning that his mother was going to Africa, although assured by me, still couldn't rest assured and chased to the airport. Mom, come back with me. Get out of my way. I'm going to pursue my love. I am about to become a chief's wife. The mother-in-law turned a deaf ear to Wu Li's earnest pleading at this moment. Her heart was filled only with her own love, and that distant dream of being a chief's wife. Taking this opportunity, I packed up all the valuable things in the house to prepare for the subsequent plan. Along the way, the mother-in-law was extremely excited, and kept taking pictures even when she arrived at the destination and saw the sand all over the ground. She was excited to take pictures non-stop. She even showed off on moments, claiming that she was the happiest woman in the world, and was about to become a chief's wife. She ignored dozens of calls from Wu Li. She was completely unaware that the moment she stepped on the plane, she was on a one-way street. With the painful experience of my previous life, I had thoroughly investigated this Jack long ago. This Jack was by no means the chief of a primitive tribe. He indeed came from a primitive tribe, but was just an insignificant minion. That tribe specifically deceived the lovelorn women in the country. They had a clear division of labor. Those with better looks and figures would flirt with lovelorn women on Douyin. Once they deceived a woman, they would take her to Africa and demand hundreds of thousands to millions of ransom from her family. If the money given was not enough, the woman couldn't escape at all. She had to work forcefully every day, and would also be beaten by black people. Young and beautiful women were taken as concubines by black people, while those not so good looking were left as slaves, living a life worse than that of cattle and horses. After the mother-in-law arrived in Africa, she saw that the houses here were all built with large and small trees, with hardly any modern building materials such as concrete and glass. She saw some primitive women fetching water with gourd ladles. There was no running water here, but she still found this way of life extremely novel, and kept sighing that this was the real life of a primitive tribe. At first, indeed, several girls waited on her attentively, serving her food and clothing. The mother-in-law gradually became complacent and frankly said that she never expected to have such an experience in her old age. However, within a few days, Jack and his gang discovered that the mother-in-law had hardly any money on her, and even the card she brought couldn't be used to withdraw money. "Bitch, why is there no money in your card?" Jack stormed into the mother-in-law's room in a rage, and slapped her face left and right. "Darling, why are you hitting me? What money are you talking about?" Jack no longer wanted to waste time on the mother-in-law. He directly grabbed the mother-in-law's hair, slammed her head on the ground, and kept kicking her stomach with his feet. "Impossible, I brought hundreds of thousands. How could there be no money?" The mother-in-law panicked at this moment. She realized that without money here, her treatment would be the same as that of the slaves she saw on the way. So she called Wu Li, asking him to send her money, but she didn't know that I had taken all the money at this time. Wu Li was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. "Lele, quickly save mom, send mom 500,000, or mom won't be able to come back." After running out of money, the mother-in-law's treatment plummeted. On the third day in Africa, she was held down by several people and circumcised. Becoming a slave, a large piece of flesh was cut from her lower body, and the mother-in-law almost fainted from the pain. Because the wound was too deep and bleeding continuously, the primitive tribe's way of stopping the bleeding was actually to sprinkle a handful of soil on the wound. Although the bleeding stopped, this soil was simply adding insult to injury to the wound. From then on, the shape of the mother-in-law's urination became fan-shaped, and it took her half an hour to urinate each time. Even more terrifyingly, there was a custom in the tribe that every month, one had to drink men's foot washing water, saying that it symbolized good health. If one didn't drink it, one would be beaten. Again, the key was that those black people usually walked barefoot. As for the two maids who had served her before, they were actually Jack's wives. After the mother-in-law married in, her status was even lower than that of a concubine now. As long as they were a little unhappy, they would take it out on the mother-in-law. The two of them, one big and one small, would hold the mother-in-law down and beat her, and often force the mother-in-law to live stream to help them deceive girls in the country to come to Africa. At this time, the mother-in-law finally became scared and wanted to return to her home country, but Wu Li simply couldn't afford that much money. Wu Li rummaged through every corner of the house and found that all the passbooks and cards at home were gone instantly. He flew into a towering rage and kept calling his mother. But of course, he couldn't get through at all. "Honey, what should we do? Mom took all the money away. How can I save her? We need 500,000 yuan. I looked at Wu Li calmly and said, "Don't worry, I've reported all the cards lost, and I've also hidden the money in another place." As soon as Wu Li heard this, he immediately felt relieved and stretched out his hand, asking me to hand over the money and cards to him. "Wu Li, perhaps you should take a look at this first." With that, I took out a bag and threw it at Wu Li. Dozens of photos scattered out. Wu Li picked up the photos and found that they were all records of him having meals with other women, making transfers, and having flirtatious conversations. He was first in a flurry of panic, but then he immediately sneered. "Huh, so what? You're already past your prime. I sent it okay for me to seek some freshness outside? I've supported you for so long. What's wrong with having some fun with other women?" "Wu Li, I believe that extramarital affairs are sufficient to make you leave the marriage with nothing. After saying that, I turned around and left gracefully. I hired a lawyer, had the injuries I suffered before appraised, and planned to sue Wu Le for domestic violence and extramarital affairs. Ridiculously, Wu Le still thinks that I can't live without him, and assumes that I'm just throwing a minor tantrum. The next day, he came to me with a rose, hoping that I would go back with him and find a way to save his mother. He also said, "Without me, no one will support you. This little quarrel is enough. If we really get divorced, no one will want you." Looking at his indifferent attitude, I really wished I could slap myself several times. How could I have been so blind as to marry such a beast in human clothing? What he called supporting me was nothing but making me work like a slave for him and his mother, enduring their abuse every day just because I ate a few meals at their home. He claimed to have supported me. I slapped the rose he bought away and stepped on it in front of him. Our relationship at this moment was just like this trampled rose in pieces. I told him to find a lawyer quickly, saying that he might get a lighter sentence, but he thought I was just scaring him and laughed at me loudly, saying that I was just bluffing. Only then did I realize what it meant to cast pearls before swine. I stopped talking nonsense with him and turned around to leave. Doesn't Wu Le care most about his face? I deliberately went to his company with the police and had the police take him away in front of everyone. Without hesitation, I showed the scars on my body that I had suffered these days to everyone and told them that Wu Le had an affair with the secretary in his company and had also committed domestic violence against me. Thus, while Wu Le was still on his way to the police station, the company's HR had already sent him a dismissal notice. I was very satisfied with this result. At the police station, Wu Le still stubbornly denied it, saying that I was slandering him. It was not until I took out the surveillance video at home. In the video, his ferocious appearance while beating me was clearly captured. A month later, the court issued a judgment due to Wu Le's domestic violence and extramarital affairs. And with the encounter of a prosecutor who abhorred evil like an enemy, he was sentenced to 3 years in prison, and all the property was awarded to me. Wu Le left the marriage with nothing. Returning to the once familiar house, and looking at everything in front of me, I only felt that things remained the same, but people had changed. Everything seemed like a nightmare. I went to visit Wu Le in prison. As soon as he saw me, his emotions became extremely agitated. I took out my phone, showed him the miserable situation of his former mother-in-law in Africa, and told him all the things indifferently. "Your mother is being beaten up now because you can't pay the ransom of 500,000 yuan. She is a slave in that primitive African tribe, not having enough to eat or wear every day." In the picture, the former mother-in-law was being beaten by a group of black people, and was still live streaming while working. Her face was black and blue, but she was still using a coaxing tone to persuade the girls in front of the screen to go to the primitive African tribe to be the chief's wife. I told Wu Le that all of this was carefully planned by me, and it was the retribution he deserved. Even Jack's turning to pursue Aunt Wang was a play acted by Aunt Wang and me. Perhaps you've all forgotten that you once harassed a little girl in the company, and your mother also spread rumors that she was engaged in some shameful work, which led to her committing suicide by jumping off a building unexpectedly. She was the missing youngest daughter of Aunt Wang. Your secretary was also exposed because of her affair with you, and was fired by the company. However, she was lucky enough to cling to a boss, and is now his mistress. But I heard that the boss's wife is looking for people to deal with her. And you, Wu Le, you scumbag, will have to spend at least 3 years in prison. Moreover, there will surely be someone to take good care of you inside. When Wu Le heard what I said, he was originally filled with anger, but as soon as he heard that someone would take care of him soon, his face instantly turned pale with fear, and he kept covering his buttocks. "Please, Gu Yu, for the sake of our once loving relationship, spare me," Wu Le pleaded desperately, with tears and snot all over his face. Looking at Wu Le's bruised and swollen face, I knew that he was having a tough time inside, but what did it matter to me? And that old bachelor who bought me in my previous life was also arrested by the police on the charge of human trafficking. Because of my report, Callie believed that his future days will only be spent in prison. In my previous life, I was tortured to death by them. Did they ever show any mercy to me? In this life, it's their turn to taste the same pain. After getting rid of them, I felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off my shoulders, and my state of mind seemed to return to my girlhood. I no longer need to worry about daily necessities, nor do I need to worry about being beaten or scolded. I just need to live my own life well. Before getting married, I was originally a painter. After getting married, lured by Wu Le, I gave up my beloved career. Now, I can finally regain my dream. I sold the house, packed my luggage simply, and decided to leave this heartbroken place. The flight to Paris was already flying at a low altitude. The scenery outside the window kept changing alternately, and the familiar city behind me was getting smaller and smaller. All the unpleasant things had been cleared away, and I believe that my remaining life will surely be surrounded by flowers. A few minutes later, the entire familiar city became smaller and smaller, and finally turned into a small dot and disappeared, along with my unbearable memories all sealed away. And I am about to embrace a brilliant future.